Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the Epic Narrative.
And we're back. Welcome to the Epic Narrative. The Epic Narrative will continue. You know what I find about this story about Gideon? It's way longer than I remember it being. And I think it's because, at least in the circles I grew up in, they used what portion of his story that they liked because it meant, obey God, stand up to your enemies, fight with low numbers, obey the man of God. God gives the man of God a plan. You need to follow him. Like they used it to support the hierarchy. And I think it's actually a story very much about hierarchy and how it goes haywire, how it goes sideways, and how quickly it goes. If you remember last week, we looked at this, this concept, and that was, here was Gideon. They have a supernatural victory. The Midianites are confused. They're killing each other. They're running away. All he had to do was sit in that supernatural victory. And instead, he takes that supernatural victory and he propels himself into the forefront of now general and leader of the nation going to war. And we're going to see a continuation of that. And I'm not saying that, again, I don't think that was God's plan. I just don't. I will say that straight up. I don't know if Gideon had any other paradigm to interpret God through. The belief system he had, this is what gods do. They go to war and they beat up other gods. That's what everybody had done his whole life. Every god, every idol, every other religion that he was aware of, their gods went to battle with other gods, and it was and mankind played that out. And then the winner is the winner. They're the big god. So I don't know if he had another paradigm to even work with. I don't think it means he shouldn't have made a better choice. It's just he made the easy choice. People are excited. Enemies on the run. If we're really going to get out from under their oppression, they all have to die. Now, is that true? No. They already had that nation. That nation was already in dire need of a relationship with God. They were already very scared of what God could do. They did not want to mess with God. They were already confident that the Israeli God was going to beat them. They could have easily been brought to the negotiating table. And I think we'll see more of that today. I was going to go one way. I decided not to. Instead, oh man. Instead, we're going to go to the scriptures. We're in Judges chapter 8. Now, Ephraimites asked Gideon, "Why have you treated us like this? Why didn't you call us when you went to fight Midian?" And they challenged him vigorously. I don't know if you've ever been a part of a vigorous challenge. I don't know. I just think those are great words. Vigorous. They challenged him vigorously. It was an animated conversation. Now, some people grow up in homes like this where everything is animated. And if you're not used to it, man, you can feel almost threatened, like somebody's gonna get killed. Like we're sitting around the dining room table, it's gonna get crazy, man. People are yelling. There's there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. I've been in homes like that. Nothing long term, for sure. I'm more familiar with people who have grown up in homes with tension. And they don't know how to operate without it. So they create tension in every home they're at because then they're comfortable. Anyways, that's another whole story. This is a vigorous challenge. These are men that, a tribe that he reached out to in the early mornings after the confusion. And he's like, "Hey, We've got them on the run. Could use your help. Cut off the water, cut off the crossings of the Jordan. Keep them in our country. And then pursue them and kill them. And that's what they did. I mean, they jumped on the bandwagon. And then if you remember, they captured 2 kings. And that's what Gideon, honestly, great answer. He's like, hey, what have I accomplished compared to you? Oh man, talk about a politician. I mean, he lays it on thick. Aren't the gleanings of Ephraim's grapes better than the full grape harvest of basically the enemy? He's like, listen, you have a better tribe and a better land and a better, leadership. You guys are so much better than the enemy that we're destroying. So it's not like you needed anything from them. Plus, and I love this, right? Because you always got to drag God into this if you want to be the winner. God gave Oreb and Zip into the Midianite leaders into your hands. What was I able to do compared to you? And at this, their resentment against him subsided. Yeah, man. He's like, he totally played politics, and it worked. They were like, why didn't you call us to begin with? We could have helped you. And he was like, what have I done? What have I done? Your land is far better than my land. It's far better than their land. It's not like you needed some of their land or needed some of their grapes. You already have the best. And God has given the leaders into your hands and not into mine. What have I done? I ran around the desert like a lunatic for a little while, slashing and dashing on people. Relax. You guys are the ones that really deserve the credit here. And they bought it. They were like, oh, yeah, you're probably right. We are pretty awesome. Now, after that, Gideon's basically in a position where he's like, hey, I've got more work to do. So Gideon, verse 4, and his 300 men, exhausted, yet keeping up with the pursuit, came to the Jordan and crossed it. He said to the men of Succoth, give my troops some bread. They are worn out, and I'm still pursuing these other 2 leaders, Zibah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian. But the officials of Succoth said, do you already have the hands of those 2 in your possession? Why should we give you bread to your troops? Then Gideon replied, just for that. When the Lord does give them into my hands, I will tear your flesh and with desert thorns and briars. And from there, he went up to Peniel, and he made the same request. And they answered the same as Succoth. So he said to the men of Peniel, when I return in triumph, I will tear down this tower. Now, I just want to work through that just a little bit, all right? When he crosses the Jordan, he goes to the first town. He's like, listen, we're exhausted. We're in real need of nourishment. My 300 men and I. What do you say you help us out, right? Because this was not a planned attack. The plan was smash the buckets, light the torches, blow the horns. The rest of the plan was he was winging it. So he's been running all day. And I imagine, it's not a straight run. It's not like a marathon. Like you're sprinting, you're fighting, you're helping somebody else fight. You kind of create a battlefield, so to speak, for the 300 men or so. And then when all the enemy's dead and the rest of them started running again, now you chase them again. And it has to be exhausting. Very similar running, I would think, to that of a soccer game where you run and then you kind of do a little bit of battle and then you run some more and then you run back. And then anyways, I forget how many miles they say like a center halfback or one of the wings does on a typical soccer game, but they run miles and miles, and it's not in a straight line, and it's not a continuous jog like a marathoner. It's sprint, jog, walk, jog, run, sprint. It's not easy. So you get exhausted and you're tired. And I'm sure they drank at the river, and then they kept going, and they needed some food, and they stopped at the first town, and they were like, "Hey, can you give us some food?" And they're like, "Aren't the hands of those kings already in your hands?" So that doesn't mean the literal hand. I mean, it potentially could, but really what they're saying is, you've already beaten these guys. Why should we give you food to continue pursuing them? You're on this side of the Jordan now. They're clearly defeated. And if we help you, we're stuck on this side of the Jordan, and they could come after us. So they're playing politics. They're looking at the reality. They're like, you got 300 men. They got way more men. You didn't plan this battle out very well. You've won so far today. They're clearly defeated. Like, I don't think you're going to get them. And if you don't get them, which we don't think you will, and we've helped you, then we're in trouble. So they're playing it safe. They're playing politics. It's not, some preachers will make this into some prophetic deal where they represent, the enemies of God, and don't go to the enemies of God for bread because they won't give it to you, and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I look at this and I say, all right, Gideon is out of his lane. He ran out of his lane when he started chasing these guys down, and he's in desperate need of help. And for me, one of the things I see here in the goodness of God is he should have backed off at that point. He should have listened to these kings and said, you know what? You're right. We have defeated them. Their hands are in my hands. And I can now, we don't have to pursue them anymore. But he didn't. He goes to the next town, and the next town plays the same little politics. They're like, listen, we're not going to give you any bread, or we're not going to feed your troops. I mean, it's only 300 men, which is, even now the two kings have 15,000 men. So, like, they're like, you don't have the troops. You don't have the troops. Like, you're not going to win this. It's okay. You beat them badly. They are embarrassed. They are frustrated. They are angry. You've killed two of their other kings. We're not going to help you. And in both cases, Gideon promises revenge. Now, revenge is not of God. I mean, we look at that one verse, right? Revenge is mine, saith the Lord. Basically, what he's saying is, don't try and do that on your own. If anybody's going to do revenge, I am, and this is how God does revenge. He doesn't do it. So he's like, you don't do it either. But if you really want to, then turn it over to me. I'll take care of it. So Gideon promises revenge. On the first town, he promises to come back and basically tear the flesh from their bones with thorns and briars, which doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. And to the second town, he's like, I'm going to tear down this tower. Now, he has, in this particular town, evidently it was known, they had a very strong, they had a stronghold. It was a tower. And when they were under attack, everybody would go into the tower, and there they could stay, and the arrows couldn't get through, and, horses couldn't get in, and their archers could be at the top of the tower. And they didn't necessarily have a whole lot of defense, but they didn't need it because you couldn't get in. It was a very powerful tower, and that's what it was known for. He's like, I'm going to tear it down. In other words, I'm going to take away your ability to defend yourself so that you now have to live in fear. So in verse 10, it says, now the two kings, I'm not going to keep mispronouncing their names. They were in Karkor, with a force of about 15,000 men, so about 10% of their original. That was all that's left of the armies. That was 120,000 that had fallen. So about 10% are left. Gideon went up by the route of the nomads. The two kings of Midian fled because he surprised the army. So in other words, he did not do army the way that you're supposed to do it back then, which was send in envoys, determine a field of battle, determine a time of battle, and then, and then all meet at the appropriate time. He went in basically through back door, side doors, whatever, the place of nomads. With 300 men, you have far more flexibility and speed in battle than the 15,000 men that the other guys had. And he surprises them. In other words, there's no plan for the battle. Just go in and start swinging. And he wins, right? The kings take off. The two kings of Midian fled, but he pursued them. He captured them. He routed their entire army. And then Gideon returned from battle to the pass of Heres, and he caught a young man from Succoth. So that was the first town that he had hit. And he says to this young man, he's like, tell me about your town. And the young man wrote down the names of 77 officials, the elders of the town. Then Gideon came and said to the man of Succoth, here are Zibiah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me. You said to me, haven't you already beat them? Don't you already have them in your possession? Why should we give you bread to your exhausted men? And he took the elders of the town and taught the men a lesson by punishing them with desert thorns and briars. So 77 elders were basically whipped with long strings of thorns and briars. They just were bloodied. Some of them you probably could see their shoulder blades, maybe some of their rib cage. They were going to be a long time recovering. Now, did he kill them? No, but he embarrassed them. He put them in an immense amount of pain, and he let them know that he now knows all of their names, which had to be quite disconcerting, because I doubt all 77 of them were there when they told him, we won't give you bread. There was probably a much smaller group, but now all 77 paid the price. Let's see. Then he goes to the in verse 17, he also pulled down the tower of Peniel, and he killed the men of the town. So the elders there he did kill. Then he asked the two kings, what kind of men did you kill at Tabor? And the men said, men like you, each of them with the bearing of a prince. And Gideon said, those are my brothers, the sons of my own mother. As surely as the Lord lived, I would have spared your lives, but if you hadn't killed them, but now I will kill you. So he turned to his oldest son and he says to him, kill them. But Jether did not draw his sword because he was only a boy and he was afraid. So Zibiah and Zalmunna said to him, come and do it yourself, as the man, as is the man, so is his strength. So Gideon stepped forward and killed them, and he took the ornaments off their camels' necks. So here we have the kind of the conclusion of the revenge tour on his way back to town, back to his hometown, where after he had captured these two kings, he stops by the other two villages. He tears down the defenses of one of them, and he kills their elders. And he goes to the other one. He takes 77 of them. He beats them almost to death. And then he talks to the two kings, and he's like, when you were in this particular village, who did you kill? And they said, men like yourself, people that were identified as princes. So again, this goes back to the idea that sometime after he met with the angel of the Lord, people recognized him as a leader and his family as leaders of the tribe. Now, before that, if you remember when he was talking to the angel of the Lord, he said, I am of the last family and I am least in the family. So I don't know why you're calling me a mighty warrior. But now his family is known as leaders. His brothers are known as princes in the tribe. And so they're identified as that's who we killed. And he's like, man, if you hadn't killed them, I would have killed you. But now, because you killed my brothers, I'm killing you. and he calls over his oldest son, who evidently wasn't that old, but he was the oldest one that Gideon had, and he says to his oldest son, kill them, and he couldn't do it, and I mean, maybe you're not into war movies. I like war movies, and many times there's usually a character, whether he's a main one or not, that has an opportunity to kill someone because he's being told to, usually because they hadn't actually killed anyone yet, whether they came into the war late or were assigned to to be a reporter, and now because of war, they need everyone to be killers, and he's still not having whatever. I don't need to go into the characters of these war movies. Bottom line is they're forced to kill somebody so that they can get it out. And I kind of picture this scene similar to that, where the son is looking at his father like, I don't want to do this. Now, maybe he's been, running around with his father, watching his father kill people. Maybe he's had a few fist fights, but he actually hasn't stabbed anybody. I don't know. But he clearly did not want to kill these kings. He was uncomfortable doing it. And so the kings, they taunt Gideon, and they basically call him out. They're like, why don't you do it? You think you're so strong and tough? Well, make your little boy do this? Why don't you have the strength to do it? So he did. I don't know. I'm sure at some level, maybe they thought they were gonna win that battle, but it did not go well. All right. So here's Gideon, right? He goes from this insecure, guy from the least tribe of the least guy, the least of the least. Now he's turned into a leader, or he's anointed a leader, and now he's turned into a general, and he's gone from leading men in connection to God, doing something supernatural, to just leading men as some sort of bloodthirsty tyrant. And that's, there's a lot of people who, when arrogance gets to be a part of your life, and you're at the top of the pyramid and everybody's telling you how awesome you are, you can become very arrogant and power driven and power hungry. And I've seen it happen to many wonderful, almost even humble leaders who are given opportunities, and then they start taking opportunities, and then they move into opportunities, and then they protect those opportunities with their lives, and they will kill. Well, maybe not literally, but they will abuse and, in essence, destroy people's lives who get in their way. So in verse 22, the Israelites say to Gideon, rule over us, you, your son, and your grandson, because you have saved us from the hand of Midian. So basically they're saying, be our king for multiple generations, your kids and their kids after them. And Gideon says, I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. See, now that seems like a good answer. That's exactly what he should have said. And he did. He said it. But then the story continues. And it's like, wait a minute. How many of you have heard leaders use the right words, but then it's almost like that concept of gaslighting? It's like they say things like, hey, we're family and we love you and I'll be there for you. My door's always open. You can call me anytime. And then they treat you like a slave, and they aren't available, and they push your phone calls off, and they send an assistant, and they tell you they can't meet with you for a while, but here's the number of somebody who can. Like there's a difference between what you say and what you do. And this is Gideon, and it reminds me of when he was what was the word? Boldly confronted? Anyways, when he was confronted by those two tribes, I know it's right up there. I could read it again. He played politics really well. And I think for whatever, I don't know where he learned it. I don't know if he just dreamed someday if I'm ever in charge. I mean, I've done that. I've done that so many times, man. If I was in charge, if I was in charge. And here I am in an RV, not in charge of anything. So I sometimes think, well, maybe God knows me better than I know myself. Time will tell. Anyways, so he gives God credit. He's like, my family's not going to rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. And he said, I do have one request, that each of you give me an earring from your share of the plunder. It was a custom of the Ishmaelites to wear gold earrings. They answered, we will gladly give them to you. So they spread out a garment. Each of them threw down a ring from his plunder onto it. And the weight of the gold of the ring came to 1,700 shekels, not counting the ornaments, the pendants, the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and the chains that were around their camels' necks. So the Midianite kings, they basically had another breastplate that hung on the front of the camels. I mean, it probably served at some level as protection, but it was made out of gold and it was quite ornate and very heavy. So he got a ton of gold. And what did he do with it? Oh, he made an ephod, which is basically another breastplate, usually with a shoulder harness. So it would kind of hook onto you. Sometimes it actually had a hole for your head, and it would sit on you almost like a football shoulder pads, and it would be big, and then the breastplate would be in front. And he placed it in Orpha, which was his town, in basically what would be like a little chapel, little domed top chapel where everybody would know where it is and that sort of thing. And all Israel prostituted themselves by worshiping there, and it became a snare to Gideon and his family. So let's walk through this. So first of all, he refuses and gives credit to God, right? And then he tells them to follow God, but he collects a tribute to himself. He's like, you guys need to follow God, but I do have this one request. I could just have an earring from everybody's. Evidently, they were pretty large earrings. Plus, he got all this other gold, about 450 pounds, plus the other stuff. And he fashions this big old breastplate, and he hangs it in basically a little chapel as a reminder to everybody how awesome he was and is as a leader and general there in Israel. And it said that people would come and they prostituted themselves in worship of Gideon's gold. You see, he still owned that gold. The value of that gold was his family's. It was what gave him security as a leader. It was to remind people that he's the one that brought them freedom so that they could earn money and continue to gain wealth. And they did. They brought it to him. That's what it means, they prostituted. They would go and they would worship Gideon's God. They didn't worship Yahweh. And they would leave tributes there all the time: food, clothing, gold, silver, various spices. They would bring, first fruits of their harvest, of the shearings. He basically made a shrine to himself and enriched himself off of being their leader. And that's what it means. It became a snare to him and his family. It became their idol. And then let's see, modern. Oh, verse 28. Midian was subdued before the Israelites and did not raise a hand again. During Gideon's lifetime, the land had peace for 40 years. So for 40 years, Gideon ruled basically as a king. You brought him all his wealth, and he continued to increase his wealth. And we'll see this. The son of Joash, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, he had 70 sons of his own, for he had many wives. 70 sons, many wives, concubines, etc. Why? Because Gideon basically refused to be king, but then he lived like it. He said the right words, but then he behaved differently. Concubines and wives represent trade deals, peace deals, bribes. 70 sons means that he wanted to make sure that his line would never stop being a ruler in Israel. The amount of gold that he was able to not acquiesce. What do I want to say? Not accomplish. No, acquire. Thank you, Bob. My gosh, where did that word go? Was quite large. And then it says one of his concubines who lived in Shechem also bore him a son whose name was Abimelech. Gideon, son of Joash, died at a good old age and was buried in the tomb of his father Joash. And no sooner had Gideon died than the Israelites began to prostitute themselves again to the Baals that they'd set up as their god, Baal-berith. Why? Well, they've been prostituting themselves the whole time. They weren't worshiping Yahweh. They were paying tribute and, in essence, worshiping the God of Gideon. Now, who was that? Well, that was Yahweh, but still, they were in essence, they set Gideon up as their priest and king. And so as soon as he was gone, they were like, well, let's just go ahead and worship other gods. Might as well. And we don't have to bring all that money to his family. And this is what happens, and we talked about it before. When you're in a hierarchical system and the man at top leaves, or the group on top leaves, people are like, there's always a bunch of people who are like, yeah, well, we're out. Like, we were only here because of that guy. We're only here because if we didn't, that group is going to come get us or whatever. So as soon as they're gone, it's like, yeah, we're out. So without his control, the people did what they wanted to do. That kind of control, that kind of leadership doesn't actually help people grow and become strong and independent thinkers and leaders of their own. They become followers and servants and slaves, and their creativity and wisdom and discernment is actually shut down and moved in such a way that they are unable to do what they were called to do, because the leader sits on top of them and either, well, through many means, abuses the opportunity and that they bring, the strength that they bring, the riches that they are able to acquire. The leader absorbs it all and takes it for themselves. And it says, they did not remember the Lord their God, who had rescued them from the hands of all their enemies on every side. They also failed to show any loyalty to the family of Gideon, in spite of all the good things he had done for them. So after 40 years of paying tribute to Gideon, and evidently, like I said, he did a ton of deals, or he wouldn't have had so many wives. He had peace treaties and trade deals and allies. All those things went on. But even though he did all those good things for his tribe and for Israel, as soon as he was dead, they're like, yeah, too bad. We're going to go with someone else. And they went with a different Baal. They went with a different god, Baal. El is the word God. So when you see the word Baal, it's Bael. Some people will do that as 2 syllables, Baal. And then usually the characteristic that they want to worship is the second word that they put out there. So anyways, just a side note. But we noted, or not noted in here, is one particular son born to a particular wife or concubine from Shechem. And we're going to pick up there next week in chapter 9 of the book of Judges. Join us again on the epic narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
All right, welcome back to Bob Thoughts. What'd you think of Gideon? I'll tell you, I know I told you the last couple of weeks, man. This story caught me just because I'm confident I read the whole story before, but the way he set himself up as the de facto king, receiving tribute, having a chapel, so to speak, where people could come and honor him, taking on multiple concubines and wives. What he tried to tell everyone he wasn't interested in, he literally just went and did. And I know I made that point during the episode. But yeah, it's fascinating, and sometimes in a lot of ways, sometimes it reminds me of people who get money. And they talk about what they would do if they ever got money, and then they get money and they do the exact opposite. They suddenly become the whatever it was that they didn't want to be, and they said, I would never do that if I was rich. They get rich and they're doing that exact thing. And you step back and go, wait a minute. I think you said you weren't going to do that. Oh, it's different now. I guess politicians do the same thing, right? They're like, elect me, I won't be like them. And then you elect them and they're like, wait a minute, you are just like them. What was the name of that book, Bob? Old book. About a farm. Something farm. Do you guys remember that? It was about a farm. And the pigs took over. The farmer was the bad guy, and the pigs ended up taking over the farmer, killing the farmer, and then they started to act just like the farmer. They moved into the house. They started not doing their chores. They were no longer. I know there's people screaming at their podcast right now going, Bob, this is it. Something animal. Oh no. See, this is what I get for just winging it. Anyway, and now, yeah, I will say when it comes to money, it's interesting. Some people sometimes I think seem generous, but in reality, they don't really understand what they have. Like they don't have a concept of money, so they give it away freely, and they lose it. Like they just don't have, and if you're observing them, you would be like, wow, what a generous, amazing person. And then but the reality is, I guess the reality is they are generous. They just don't know what they gave away. They don't realize how generous they're being. But it's fascinating. Money's fascinating. People are fascinating. You guys are awesome for listening. Really appreciate everybody out there. Yeah, I look forward to next week. We're going to keep on going. It definitely looks like was going to be season 6. I'm going to divide into season 6 and 7 because otherwise it's 68 or so episodes, which is just way too many to commit to, I think, anyways. So we'll do 1 Samuel, we'll do 2 Samuel. It is the life of David. It'll play out differently though than season 1. I like season 6 and 7. I think they're going to be really awesome. But I love season 1. Every time I listen to it, I think I really like what we did there. So we're going to leave season 1, but I think we're going to do 2 different seasons, and I can't tell you about it right now in detail, but I think we finally found a full-time job that we can settle down into. So it may impact the podcast, but time will tell because we don't actually have the job yet. But we're working on it. Stay tuned next week on the Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.